In the early spring of 1592, war broke out amongst two methods of finding areas and volumes beneath curves. The two sides, of course, were the disk method, led by General Ulysses Disk Grant, known well for his squared abilities, and the shell method, led by the fearless Stonewall Jackson and his famous 2-pi attack plan. It became apparent after just one confrontation that the tensions of the war were quite high.
All disks find the volume.
If it's the square root of x, it can't be solved!
It soon became very clear that the shell method far dominated any rotations around the y-axis from any given points. But to better understand the full magnitude of the war, we had to discuss the most important battle with historian Miss Alexander.
I think that perhaps the largest conflict in the war was the siege of Discburg.
Very rapidly, the weight of the war became obvious, and the casualties were an irrationally large number. The bodies began to be buried in infinite rectangles rotated around a fixed point. The little hope that remained for peace sat on the shoulders of but one man, who prepared for the greatest speech in the history of calculus in front of a crowd of thousands.
Fourscore and 7 chapters ago, our teachers brought forth in this classroom a new concept conceived in integration and dedicated to the proposition that all methods are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that method or any method so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to integrate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that this method might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But, in a larger sense, we cannot derive, we cannot differentiate, we cannot factor this curve. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have integrated far above our poor power to add or subtract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what we integrated here. It is for us, the living rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who have fought here thus far have so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion. That we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this method, under the curve, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that integration of the people, by the people, and for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Thank you.
It was his speech that really altered the outcome of that war. It was astonishing the impact he had as a great orator of the time. The methods were divided, and he found a way to keep integration focused on finding the area and volume. It was this speech that was the point in which fighting began to turn into cooperation.
The shell method is easily superior. Rah!
Just draw a stinking picture.
You don't even have to square out the function with the shell method.
It's a circle. Of course it's gonna be squared.
With your silly disk method, you have to convert all the x values to y values to even rotate it around the y-axis.
But the disk method has easier x-axis rotations.
It's the same thing!
Eventually, the methods were able to put aside differences for the common goal, and soon there was no area, no volume that could not be solved. Thank you for watching.